SIMGOT EA500. This has been one of the most hyped IEMs recently, with a lot of positive reviews. And let's actually see if it's worth the hype, what it does well, and where it needs some improvement. So it comes with this nice case, some ear tips, the different nozzles you could try out. Personally, I'm not a fan of the different nozzles. Instead, just tune the IEM well, make it one signature, and it should be good. That's what usually the best IEM to do. So they could cut cost by a little bit also. So yeah, decent case, pretty sturdy. These are the IEMs. It comes with a really nice cable. I actually like this cable. It's better than some other cables I've tried. And it feels decent, not too cheap, good quality. And then the earbuds themselves, or the IEMs, pretty high quality. I will have to give them high marks for that because it's solid. It has a decent amount of weight to it, feels premium in the hand, slightly cold to the touch. Can't really complain about the way it's built or the cable, and the fit is decent also. So yeah, that's the fit side of things, ergonomic side of things. Now let's talk about the sound quality. So these have overall a pretty bright sound. So I would call this maybe bright neutral with some added bass presence. So starting with the sub bass, this doesn't have that much sub bass. It definitely has mostly mid bass. I will say though, the mid bass quality on this IEM is really, really good. I hear drums well. They're clear. The bass is really, really good on these. So whoever said the bass was good, I agree with them. It is a step up from some cheaper IEMs in the mid bass. So any bass guitars, drums, I hear them really clearly and well separated. So overall, I can't really complain about the bass. It is one of the best I've heard under 100. Maybe it could use a little bit more sub-bass presence on more hip-hop, rap, EDM types of tracks, but the bass is really good on these in terms of the texture and how clear it sounds and clean, not muddy. This is definitely not a muddy IEM, that's for sure. And then now going into the lower mids, like I said, there's a little bit of mid bass that doesn't really add too much warmth, but it's just well controlled and separated. And the upper mids on this IEM are really, really forward, airy, bright. So if let's say you're sensitive to treble, I would not recommend this IEM because I like a lot of treble, or maybe more than the average person, but I do like a good quality treble. So for me, this IEM was definitely harsh, sharp, slightly metallic. So the timbre in the treble is probably the weakest point of this IEM. So whenever you're listening to vocals, it could be a little sibilant, and it could be a little harsh. So any instrument you play through here, basically, orchestra tracks, you will hear that treble is really punctuated. So it sounds a little too bright, and this needs to tone down the treble a little bit. because I can't see myself using these for more than 20 or 30 minutes. It's extremely harsh. So there is a peak somewhere above, let's say 6K, and like above there in the air regions and the treble regions. So it is pretty fatiguing. But I noticed, so let's say if you listen to a lot of modern recordings, this IEM will sound pretty fatiguing. But if you listen to more analog recordings, more old school, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, you're not even going to hear the treble sharpness. It's going to sound pretty good and smooth. But when you switch over, because modern recordings, they have more treble in the tracks. That's just the way they're recorded. So basically, if you're a treble head, you might like these, but I'm honestly, there's no way. Like, I think everyone would get fatigued from this. Listening at it for extended periods of time. Unless if you listen to extremely warm recordings, which I like to do that. So with those, it works fine, but just be wary. It's not an all-rounder IEM. So I guess this works more for, I guess, older recordings. That's what this works for better. But overall, that treble definitely needs to be tamed. It's just, the texture and the timbre is not correct. And there are cheaper IEMs that outperform this in the treble. They're just smoother, cleaner, not as harsh. So, for example, the Tangzu Wanner and the KZ Linglong both have a smoother treble than the EA500. But yeah, other than that, let's talk about soundstage and imaging. So surprisingly, this has a pretty open sound. It never got cluttered or muddy. Every instrument has its spot. And maybe that's due to the treble peak and how bright the treble is. You hear smaller details better, and they pop out of the mix more clearly. So yeah, soundstage is definitely decent. I'd put it above the other cheaper budget IEMs. And the imaging is also pretty decent. I could pinpoint where the sounds are coming from. It's pretty decent. Not bad. So overall, I'd say this IEM has an acceptable bass sound, a decent upper mid-range, but the treble needs a lot of work. So SIMGOT, if you're watching this and you want to improve, make the treble a little smoother, add more sub bass, and try to tone the driver down, because the driver they're using in here, it sounds pretty high quality to me. So it's definitely not a driver issue, but it's more of like the way they tuned it. So tonality wise, it is pretty average. I'd give it a C grade for the tonality, or maybe even a C minus actually, because the Linglong and the Wanner have a better tonality. It's not as harsh, it's not as fatiguing, sounds more natural and whatnot. And then the technical performance, I'll give it a little more than the Wanner and the Linglong, because it has a slightly bit of a more open sound and the imaging slightly better. So technical performance, I'd give a C plus or a B minus. No, not a B minus, sorry. A C plus. So it is slightly better than the Wanner maybe, but it doesn't deserve it to get a B minus. This does not deserve a B minus in my opinion. So yeah, if your library is more vocal focused, more female voices, and you don't want them to sound harsh, then I wouldn't recommend this IEM, because they do sound harsh When I'm listening to orchestras, violins sound slightly fatiguing. It has a metallic timbre going on for it. And then if you listen to a flute, it'll sound overly bright. Like there's too much air to the point where it doesn't sound natural. And then bass guitars probably sound pretty good because the mid bass is decent. So definitely I would say the mid bass is the strong point of this. But the sub bass and treble need work. That's what I noticed pretty quickly. So overall, out of 5 stars, I would rate this a 3 out of 5. Which is okay. So personally, I'd use the Warner or the Linglong. They just have a better tonality. They sound more correct with the instruments. The vocals aren't as sharp, brittle, and sibilant. So they have a good start going on here. Maybe just improve on a few of those things. They have a good driver. So above 6K, around 8K, wherever it is, the peak, I forgot. But tone that down. Add more sub bass. And you're good. That's all you need to do here. So overall, would I recommend it? Kind of. I kind of recommend it. So if you do want a taste of like what more expensive IEM sound, I guess you could try it out. But personally, for me, if I only had $100, I would still try out the Warner and the Linglong because they perform close to this. Maybe not as good in the mid bass because this shines in that area. So there you have it, guys. SIMGOT EA500. Slightly overhyped. Needs a little bit of work. But other than that, it's okay. So hopefully this helped you guys out. And hopefully you guys are enjoying my reviews. That's all I have for you guys. I'll see you guys later.